Welcome to Railfans Canada. Join us as we discover Ottawa's O-Train, Montreal's REM, and Metro systems together. Welcome to RailChat number 7.
0.5 because it's the second attempt.
So I'm Shane Seguin, and I'm joined by
David Bellerive, as always.
Yes, so thank you for joining us. I'm just trying to monitor here to make sure, but it seems to be streaming now on
Yes.
the phone. I don't know exactly what went wrong there from the first point, but the streaming service we're using, for some reason there was a problem with the streaming key, or it didn't assign the streaming key properly, but hopefully now it's good. So
knock on wood.
knock on wood. So we hopefully have because it's coming through on my phone here, so we should be good.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell.
I'm just updating people on Discord to make sure that everyone knows that we are live for real now. Jeez.
So again, sorry everyone about the little hiccup there. It would, as David was saying a while ago, it's not a RailChat if there isn't some sort of technical problem, and unfortunately, this is by far the biggest one we've had yet. So
it's a new record.
Yeah. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you could just write something in the chat just to say that you can see us, because I can see it on the live stream on my phone here, but it's always hard to say if it's. Yep, somebody can see us. Yes. Okay, great.
Woo! So just 20 minutes late. It's
20 minutes late.
It's a new record for us because normally we're like either starting early or we cut the intro or we don't have sound or the video feed cuts for any reason. But at least we're live. So
yeah, and it seems like the chat in our streaming platform here isn't working, so we're gonna keep looking at. We're gonna keep our phones open to keep an eye on the chat because, fortunately, we're not going to see it on the main screen.
No, you can just. I'll send you a link, Shane, on Discord. That works too. What I'm doing there. If you have the studio open, you have everything.
Oh, okay. Well, in any case. So once again, thanks for coming. So we figured we'd start off by talking about a little bit about what we've been up to on Railfans the past couple months. I think the last RailChat was back in October, and there's been a lot of developments since that time. We haven't really been any events per se that we've attended. No. But David, you did get the opportunity to ride the new Siemens Charger and Venture train sets on Via Rail, so that was really cool. Finally. Back in November. So how was that like?
It smelled like a new car. You know that feeling of like it's finally happening. It's not just a render and we can actually sit in it and start riding it. So it's great for that. Obviously, I'm biased because I really like the LRC. I think the LRC cars and the locomotives were really iconic for Via Rail, and obviously the locomotives have been gone for a while, but the cars are still with us for a few more years. Mm-hmm. But it's really great to see something new and something that's modern and actually has modern features instead of just being refurbished of a refurbished train set. So, and obviously, like I mentioned it really quickly in one of the videos on the topic, but the crews and the staff at VRL are really excited about the new trains because for them too, it's the first new train sets they have had in over 20 years at this point. So it's new, it's modern, and hopefully going to help them achieve their operational goals in increasing ridership and hopefully carry us up to HFR maybe someday in the future. So it's more, I guess, the most positive news we got from Via Rail in the last 24 months, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, as more vehicles and train sets arrive, it becomes easier and easier. A lot of people have remarked that the most likely place to ride the train is from Ottawa to Montreal, usually on Tuesdays in the afternoon around 2 or so.
Yeah, that's train 26.
and that can still be a little hit or miss. So I mean, your mileage or your train ride may vary, but so far a lot of people have been enjoying it. It's
Yeah,
been a little underwhelming, the celebration that Via has done with it, because it's sort of been like, oh yeah, we got the train, and
that's it.
people are riding it, and there hasn't really been any media event. There hasn't really been any celebration. I guess they're waiting for
Yeah,
them to come out. But ultimately, the plan over the next couple of years is they're going to have, I think, 32 train sets, and the whole corridor is going to be served exclusively by these trains.
that's
So
right. Yeah.
become a lot easier to ride them, and the comfort and luxury
Mm.
that you can get on the corridor. I wouldn't say that the corridor is a luxury train line, but it's definitely very popular and very important. People will be able to ride it from Quebec City all the way down to Toronto and beyond, so it's going to be great. It's
Yeah.
definitely something very exciting. And we're also seeing a lot of talk now about the high frequency rail, and there's a lot of interest now for high speed rail.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops, because the government has left it really open as to what proponents are able to bid on, and making it open that, if you're able to produce a high speed rail system, tell us about it, show us what you can do. They're
Mm.
not completely closing the door on it. Whether that actually
No.
happens or not, it's hard to say, but not closing the door completely sort of leaves that open. And of course, because there's a lot of grade crossings,
Mm.
clearly you can't run like a TGV style thing from Quebec City straight to Toronto, but there'll be segments, between Ottawa and Montreal. There's a lot of farm and green space where that train can really max out at speed. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how that can evolve.
And how convenient. If you haven't seen them yet, we have two videos on the topic. One about HFR just after basically the launch for the request for qualifications, and one also for Alstom proposal to bring high-speed rail to the corridor, which um, we talk a bit more about what it could look like and what it looks like. Similar systems, I guess, in the United States with ASELA and the Amtrak Northeast Regional. Obviously, all of those are hypotheticals, and we're just discussing what could maybe be done. It goes. I think we'd be lying if we're not saying we have a bias towards we would prefer to see high speed rail or something closer than high speed rail to high speed rail, at least on segments of the corridor where it makes sense to do it. Like, we don't expect them to tear down entire neighborhoods to build
No.
straight alignments, to have basically a 250-kilometer line between Montreal and Ottawa in places where there's already things built or simply no space to build it. But at the same time, I have doubts that it makes much sense to build to 200-kilometer an hour standards in segments where it's pretty much going to be a straight line anyway, no matter what they build. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I guess by the end of the year, we're going to have a better idea also with once the RFQ for HFR, so the request for qualification, is completed, we'll have at the very least a slight idea of who are the bidders in each group, and that's going to give us a bit of an idea of what they're going to present as part of their actual proposals. For example, Alstom obviously already said they're much more inclined to do high-speed rail, and they say they can do it, make it work. I cannot say for sure. Obviously, I don't have access to their expertise there. But on the other end, Siemens already said that they would not bid on a high-speed proposal. They would bid on a regular rail proposal. So it'll be really interesting to see, because if those two are already diametrically opposed in their vision of what HFR should be, those are probably the two biggest rolling stock companies that are going to bid on it. Maybe CAF or Hitachi, or there's other companies obviously that could bid on the rolling stock and therefore on the infrastructure part of it. But the two largest, I guess, that would have a real chance on a North American project, they're saying different things, and basically they're trying to rely different people behind their opinions. So we'll see.
Now, moving beyond Via Rail, we're also excited by
Well, I mean, the weather. No,
Well,
no,
well, it's
no, no
currently
more.
raining outside.
Yeah,
Well, they were saying it was going to rain, but not very much right now.
no,
Once
no.
again, the Weather Network, thanks for keeping us off the golf course.
Mm,
No, so we're going to talk now about the Réseau Express Métropolitain that's going to be
mm,
opening probably, potentially in less than 2 months. We're
yeah,
looking at maybe 54 days or less because they did say everything is still trending to open this spring. So if we look at the calendar, spring ends on June 20th, I believe.
that's right. Yeah,
And they also gave a hint that it would be on a Friday, which makes sense because the ridership on Friday will be a little less, and then they have the full
yeah.
weekend to sort of break things in before hitting a Monday. So if we think of this spring and on a Friday, that gives a limit of June 16. That's about 54 or so days from now.
Yeah.
However, it could be sooner than that. I would think they're not going to totally rush it, but everything so far is trending as in their view and in their point of view that the spring is achievable at this point.
Mm,
So hopefully in the next 2 months or the next couple of weeks, we're going to be riding the Alstom Metropolis from Brossard to Gare Centrale, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful.
yeah. Like even probably everyone saw the pictures. Obviously, the more recent ones of the now the stations are actually being commissioned, and they're inviting municipal staff and so on to actually visit the sites and have an idea of like how the station's going to be laid out and how it's going to work for the people traveling there. And even from August, like the progress at Gare Centrale, when we're there mid-August and it's unrecognizable. Like it's that the whole station is now ready to see people, and it looks actually really close to the renders, which is a bit shocking when we think about how many
Mhm.
projects have renders that are amazing, and then the project itself is I won't say underwhelming, but doesn't have the same, like, has a lot of value engineering. Let's put it
Mhm.
this way in it. So definitely, I think REM is going to be the highlight, at least of the first half of 2023 for us. Uh, but yeah, 54 days at most if they're actually meeting their deadline. Every interview that we've seen recently with staff from CDPQ Infra and from the all the teams related to the project, they seem to say they're still on track. So fingers crossed.
And they're
It'd be
also
great
putting
though.
out a really nice video series in
Mm,
conjunction with the Radio Canada, in
yes.
which Jean-Vincent Lacroix from the REM team, CDPQ Infra,
Mm.
is talking about all sorts of different aspects from the voice, which is Caroline Delor.
Oh,
Geez, no,
Delorme? No.
no, Caroline Giarnet.
I have to
Duvernay.
Google it. That's not a good sign.
No,
Yeah,
it's
you're right. Yeah.
Caroline Devernas, who
Yeah, there
is
you go.
incidentally the daughter of Michel Deslauriers, who is the
Mhm.
voice of Le Métro. So that's really cool how there's sort of, yeah, Alain Boyer, Caroline Devernas. I don't know how that got, I got confused with the mother's name, but it's really interesting that there's sort of that connection between
Yeah.
both mass transit systems to have the mother and daughter. You never know, maybe one day she'll have her own daughter voicing the next one, but it's pretty neat. Like there's
And
really a legacy going on with that side of things. They showed a little bit of the station announcements. We got to hear, prochaine station Brassard. They talked about the door opening and door closing
mm,
sounds, which are really futuristic. It's not
yeah,
just a basic chime. It sort of has like this smooth, amplitude kind of sound to it, where it kind of builds up and then it kind of crescendos and comes back down.
yeah,
A lot of really interesting elements. The pictures that we see online that are being published from within the station are stunning. Beautiful glass, lots of light. The light fixtures inside are really, they like beams of light framed very nicely that really accentuate the architectural design and scope of the stations. In addition, I can see that Alain Boyer is on the chat with us. Alain lives out in the Deux-Montagnes region, and he's been sharing a lot of pictures with us over the past many months. So thank you very much, Alain. You can see his pictures on our REM site, rem.railfans.ca/snapshot, and you can check out a great deal of the stations from different angles, how they're advancing. And there's a lot of stations on the section that's not going to be opening this year that are quite well advanced as well,
Yes.
which is really impressive to see. But it's going to be great just to get onto the first 5 stations, that initial segment there between Brassard and Gare Centrale, crossing the Pont Samuel de Champlain, and then kind of wrapping itself around the Via Rail maintenance facility and Griffintown to line up with Place Bonaventure and to go into Gare Centrale. It's going to be beautiful. It's very exciting. I mean, I'm pretty excited just to
Oh,
look
we're
out
all.
just to look out the front window or the back window unencumbered, because there's no operator, completely automated. Although it seems like there might be a possibility initially that there might be some staff on board just to supervise or sort of operate the trains. But if it's not automated initially, it's going to be completely automated sometime shortly after. But it's just going to be so exciting to see this thing finally be realized. It's going to be beautiful, nice, big, open, spacious trains, lots of color, different tones of green inside, some yellow and some white. It's going to be stunning.
And it's worth mentioning that it's truly going to be the fastest way from someone on the South Shore to commute into downtown Montreal, because there's no way you're going to, at rush hour, whenever it happens, or like, there's no way you're going to go as fast across the Champlain Bridge as on the REM. And even to get downtown after that, it's really, I think a lot of the excitement with the REM is obviously it's the first new line we see. Well, I shouldn't even call it a line. The first new mode we see in Montreal, I should say, since the Montreal Metro and its latest expansion to bring us to Laval. So, like, obviously, it's going to serve a side of Montreal and of the greater Montreal area that was always underserved, at the very least on the South Shore. And now, obviously, with the next phases, that's going to bring us to de Montagne and Anse-Salom. That's going to really, really change things for a lot of people in Montreal. So, I think it's not. We're not overselling it by saying it's really exciting and that we're all excited for it, because it's truly a game changer. And it's great to see at least a project. And like, obviously it's been delayed. I mean, we cannot act like it's been on time, on budget, or anything like that. But at least the whole vision of what they're trying to do doesn't seem to have been diluted in any way or whatsoever. So it's really exciting, I think.
And I think their communications that they've been doing from the start until now, especially now, it's really ramped up. It's very engaging. You're doing interviews again, Jean-Vincent Lacroix, I think Rose Chrétien, like they're both doing a lot of interesting episodes, again, in conjunction with the Radio Canada. So you can check it out on one of their Facebook channels. But very interesting topics, very proud and excited to talk about the system, how it's going to work, the different elements. And that's something that you don't really see elsewhere. I mean, we see Metrolinks and we have a blog and we do this and we do that. But
a blog, to be fair.
it doesn't compare to, the Quebec way of doing things, like the joie de vivre and all that. People in Montreal, let's face it, love and are proud of the Metro. And they're going to be proud of this too. And they're very happy and passionate to be able to share it. Like there's no there's no shyness, there's no holding back. They're very appreciative and they're very happy with what they have, and they're very proud of it. That's not something you always see everywhere, and you can see that enthusiasm as they're excited for it to open. And what you see on different websites, whether it's our Discord, on the Skyscraper, the Agora Montreal forum,
even our brand Toronto's talking about it. So like,
but there's a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, and it's just going to keep building. And I think what they're doing is great, just showing a lot of different videos. There was a Radio Canada team that went behind the scenes for I think a couple years now, in 2 different episodes on the show Découverte.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alain. in which they showed a lot of the different elements of the construction project, from the deepest station on the network, Edouard Montpetit, which I believe is the second deepest in North America, to modernizing and revamping the century-old Montreal tunnel, which had its own complexities, such as the unexploded dynamite and explosives that were embedded in the rock from the initial construction. So lots of different things have gone into this project. Stabilizing the McGill College Avenue, of which that rests above the tunnel, all sorts of elements. It's unbelievable to have seen something like this happen. It seemed like a miracle and a dream come true when CDPQ Infra came to the city and said, look, this is a project that we can build. This is how we can finance it. It's a return for us. It's a return for the city to be able to have a new mode of transportation to get around that is both economical, environmentally friendly, automated, safe, comfortable, serves a new area, especially going to Brassard. Because
Yeah.
even when we were in Montreal back in August for the tour of the REM sites, they had us on a bus to go from, well, we left our office, but for example, we went by
Will be
Place
Miguel. Yeah.
Bonaventure, and then we went onto the highway to get, the Bonaventure Highway to the Champlain Bridge, and it was very slow just to cross. It took a while. I'm sure had we been on the train, probably 15 minutes, we would have been there. It was
Yeah.
significantly longer than that. It was about 30, 45 minutes, and it wasn't even at rush hour. So just to give you a perspective there,
Yeah.
the thing is going to move a lot of people very quickly, very fast, no questions asked.
No. It'll be really interesting too to see the ridership. Obviously, CDPQ seems to be confident that ridership will be there, even though we're in a post-pandemic reality. And it goes without saying that a lot of transit organizations right now are feeling the pain. The STM is one of them. The TTC, OC Transport, obviously, TransLink probably feels it too. So I'm really curious to see what if the ridership will be to their expectations and the return on investment will be achievable in the long term. But obviously, things are still changing quite a bit from the pandemic, and I think it's because it's going to become such an attractive option for people on the South Shore, at the very least in the short term. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a modal change. Like it's a kind of it's a kind of network that can create such a modal change because it's first of all on a dedicated way, but also on top of that, it's brand new, it's modern, it has all the amenities someone would expect from those kind of systems. So and like I always say, I guess it's if you don't value engineer something to the bottom of the bin to achieve a price of $2.1 billion, no matter what, well, you can achieve a lot of it. A lot of things that maybe were said as being impossible in Ottawa, but are possible in Montreal because the additional investment and desire to invest in it was in place. But obviously, we're talking about different funding models and everything, so it's not fair to say it's a bit of an apples and oranges comparison, obviously, but at the end of the day, riders will be able to tell the difference, and that's where a network like that will shine.
Well, I think I can speak for the both of us and for everybody else watching, and a lot of people in Montreal, and especially on the South Shore and Brassard and beyond. Everybody's excited and very eager to ride those trains. I mean, there it is. It's right up here. And it's I really don't know what to say at this point. I mean, it's just very exciting
we could
to just
go
be
on
able
for
to cross
hours.
the bridge, to just be able to cross the bridge, ride the train, stare out the front window or the back window, nothing blocking you, and just take in the views, the scenery, the majesty of this beautiful bridge that they've constructed that doesn't even travel in a straight line. It has like a nice slight curve to it that's whole length. So the angle, if you're staring out the window like at exactly the same angle, it's going to slowly rotate to sort of accentuate downtown. It's very subtle, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yes,
and I can't wait to see how Gare Centrale finally comes off in the end with the entrances and the heritage aspects, the elevators, the escalators. It's going to be beautiful. And when we were down there, it's stunning too. With the ceiling, you still be able to see like the mechanical workings of, the roof line underneath the floor from the salle des pas perdus above. It's going to be quite something to see. It's very exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we'll move on now to OC Transpo and stage
Oh
2.
no.
So obviously,
Mm.
we're from Ottawa, so obviously we have a bit of a special connection with what happens with the O-Train in Ottawa, just a little maybe.
Definitely. Yeah.
But we're hopefully going to see stage 2 going to the south, so that's between Bayview Station and uh,
Line bank.
Lime Bank, and then the airport with the transfer at South Keys. Hopefully, that's supposed to open this fall or probably by the end of the year. Hard to say where that really stands, if that's actually going to happen. Um, they kind of hinted a few meetings ago that they were hoping for a September 1st. That doesn't seem realistic at this point. Now it seems maybe more October, maybe November.
Yeah.
And then you get into the point where, well, now we're about to hit winter. Are we actually going to run it like that? Or are we
Or
just
just
going to
wait to
skip
spring.
winter and just wait? Although
Mm.
they are saying they're planning on having parallel bus service, it's really hard to say exactly what's going to happen with that line. We're still quite a few months
Mm.
away from any real news as to where things stand. But, from what we're seeing with the construction progress right now, it was a slow winter, just as it's
Yes.
been the past couple of years. But the snow melted fairly quickly this year. The blue and black and white tarps, it took a while to get to the white, black and blue. Well, when you knock black and blue there, you kind of go white after you white out. But
Yeah.
yeah, the white tarps are down now, and the glass is starting to go up. Things really are advancing quite quickly in the past month or two. From what we've seen, from the beginning of March to the present time, things are moving very quickly. The stations are advancing, the
Yeah.
glass is going up, final works are happening in a lot of places,
At
and we're
least
being
look like
told,
it's happening.
yeah, and it seems from all indication is what they're saying at this moment, we might see test trains in the next couple of months running end to end. And we have seen, and there have been reports even on our Discord of trains operating from Limebank
Yeah.
to,
Greenboro.
Greenboro, and probably just off to Walkley Yard and all that. So there's a lot of excitement and a lot of hype for that to reopen, because obviously Carleton University is being served primarily right now by bus service. So to have the train back from an outage that was originally going to be uh, hopefully a lot shorter than it has been, is definitely going to be a good sign for the student population at Carleton, in addition to everybody else on the South Extension.
Yeah. And it's worth remembering that Stage 2 South was supposed to open last year. Like, by the original estimates, we should have been on that line last year. And like, we should have been able to ride the line last year. But obviously, anyone that's been in Ottawa in the last 24 months knows that this line is obviously not opening at this timeline they've been projecting. I live now in Orleans, and I'm obviously, like, before I used to live right next to Blair Station, but the progress along the east and west line compared to the east and west extensions compared to the south extension has been truly remarkable, and shows that either someone at Transit Next made a really poor proposal and didn't have an understanding of the actual timeline of the project, or the pandemic did actually have such a major impact on their planning ability and ability to build the stations. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be pessimistic or anything like that, but they're just, for a lot of the stations, they're just a concrete slab with bus shelters. Like,
Yeah.
obviously they had to extend them for the new trains. There's a new signaling system that goes into it. There's new tracks also that needs to be installed. So it's not just as simple as saying, like, well, they built 40 meters of concrete and put a bus shelter on top of it. It's obviously much more complicated than that. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you have Lincolnfield Station that's not going to open for another 3 to 4 years. that looks as complete as some of the stations we see on the south extension. So it's worrisome, I guess would be the word. But obviously, I think it's been particularly painful because uh, Line 2 was really popular before the pandemic, obviously, with Carleton, the economic population at Carleton and the communities at South Keys that were all used to having that link that was basically torn apart to be rebuilt to reopen at a later date. So it's definitely, I think, it's really overdue to reopen. That would be, I guess, the most polite way to put it. And I do understand that, like, I get the frustration for the people that've been living next to a station that's been under construction for what seems like 3 years with no real progress up to a few months back. And now that all of a sudden things seems to have unlocked and actually progress, and that we're still not sure if it's going to open this year for sure, but so anyway, we'll be on the first train whenever it opens. That's I think goes without saying that we're like really looking forward to it, and like it's going to be great to have this line back in service once it opens.
Well, I think the biggest thing, like you hinted at, is the progress that we're seeing on east and west. If you think about it this way, the South Line, at least from Bayview to, I know it ended at Greenboro, but I mean, come on, the rail was still there. It went beyond that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to be naive and say it didn't exist. It's been there for ages. So let's say at least the South Keys, okay? That already existed. The stations were there. They added 2 stations in between, and it was completely closed down. They removed what seems to be 100% of the rail everywhere, put down new rail, fine, good. They extended the stations from 40 meters to 80 meters to accommodate the longer trains, so the Stadler Flirt or the 2 coupled Alstom Coradia Lind, which will be running a mixed fleet on the line there. And then they're building South Keys, which is going to be a transfer station that will spur off to the airport. I mean, I'm not going to knock the line because I really like that line, and I'm very excited about the connection to the airport. I wish that there would have been a little more priority from the policymakers to have double tracked from South Keys to Bayview.
Yes.
Because then the complaint that everybody makes of it's 3 transfers from downtown to get to the airport. So you need to take, if you're staying at a hotel, let's say at the Westin or on Albert or Slater or Queen, you're going to get on, ride it to Bayview Station, then switch to Line 2, go down to South Keys, then switch to Line 4, do 2 stations to get to the airport. It could have gone all the way. Missed opportunity. I don't know why there isn't bigger interest in doing Line 2 to the same scope as Line 1 and Line 3. But this is just the way it is around here, I guess. I'm just disappointed by that. I mean, it's hard not to mention that, because that's the biggest qualm that everybody has with the line. Why does it have to be 3 transfers? It could have been done differently, or they could have prioritized airport to Bayview and had the extension to Limebank as being the shuttle service that would have had a degraded frequency or something. But
because there's a planning rationale behind those decisions. Like if it's all the documents that explain why it do exist, it's worth remembering that those documents date from I believe the most part from 2014 2015. Since then, along Line 2, there's the Claridge Icon. There's a bunch of other buildings, and there's a lot more projects that are planned and have been already approved by City Council that are going to built along that line. That's going to be. I don't recall what's the estimate. Is it 10 years from now that should be already at capacity again? With the extent. Like yeah. So
and the other thing too is the new Ottawa Hospital at Carlin. So for those in the know, they're building another, I guess, a new civic hospital about 1 kilometer or 2 from the existing one. But I mean, that place is really needed, old, and it's very busy, and it's incredibly important in this region. It's the trauma center for Eastern Ontario. And, even in a lot of ways for Western Quebec. So it's very important. But the station is going to be to the north of Carling Avenue, and the hospital is going to be on the south, but it's going to be set back from Carling Avenue about 600-700 meters, right? Something to
something
that
along
realm.
those lines, to build parking.
Why the station wasn't built on the other side? But again, they can't dictate. They can't make decisions like this when the hospital was still in flux a few years ago. But hopefully there's an underground connection or some sort of passage to go underneath rather than having people come up on a Carling Avenue and walk all the way down the street. Hopefully something improves and changes on that. And it does seem to be some indication that the station might actually get redone or moved later on, but time will tell what actually happens. That hospital project is still 8 or 10 years out before it will even open, and there still hasn't been much progress on really any groundbreaking at this point.
And to add on to that, obviously, that trench is supposed. So the trench south of Carling is planned to be covered as part of the build out for the hospital. So there's still the question of, are they going to widen that trench? Because if they don't widen the trench, that means there's no practical way to, first of all, have double track at Carling Station. And that also means, obviously, because for the most part, the trench was widened enough to allow for double tracking, except between Carling, I should say like the Dow Lake / Carling Station, and upstream at Corso Italia, where there's some parts that were widened, but not everywhere. So why wasn't a decision made to, obviously money, like everyone can write in the chat the word money. That's probably going to be the answer of half of the questions we're talking about right now. But it does feel that for such a line that we know is already going to be over capacity down the road, that there's not been a lot of planning put into place to try to avoid having another closure in maybe 5, 6, 7 years to allow for works to expand the line. Because there's some well, there you go. Whiskey can knock on the chat says money. So there you go.
Money.
Money. I gotta at least admit that on the anything south of South Keys is built for the most part with double tracking in mind, and that's at least, I guess, it shows some planning ahead. But like, for example, Walkley Station is still going to be a single track. Mooney's Bay is going to be a single track. There's going to be Carling, also Dow's Lake, that's going to be a single track. So there's a lot of places that they're creating choke points that we know are going to be needed to be addressed in maybe 7-10 years if those developments go ahead as planned. And a lot of it's going to end up being basically to close the line again, which is
disappointing.
Like, I would hope at the very least that when they're going to, when they're going to close it again, that they're at least going to try to find a way to maintain some sort of service along the alignment, even if it's a reduced service, to have at the very least, like we're talking about in 10 years, like at this point, the line's not even open and we're already talking about the line closing again to expand it. So it's not a great sign, I would say, when that's the way we have to approach things on that line. But
I think that the general picture of that line is that it's going to be definitely much improved over what it was.
Yes. Yeah, no, for sure.
And there's going to be, like, when you think about how there was passing tracks, so just north of where the Walkley Station is going to be, as well as where Corso Italia is going to be, those were passing tracks. So one train would slow down or very often stop and wait for the other train to come by, and then they would resume and pass each other effectively on the single track sections. So now, at least at Corso Italia, rather than a train completely coming to a stop, well, I mean, it's still going to stop, but it's going to be stopping at a station
for passengers
between stations. So, I mean, it becomes more effective, right? It's more efficient to stop at a station and wait than to be just stopping between stations. So there's an improvement there. And, the pedestrian underpass at Carleton University, definitely going to be a big improvement because that was very narrow. The ceiling clearance on it was very low. So that's going to be an improvement as well. There's a tunnel stub they put in just north of the station that may connect to the Carleton University tunnel network. and maybe into the station in the future. How that would ever get accomplished is anyone's guess. But
Yeah, no,
hopefully
exactly.
they have some plan. And there's some talk of buildings of Carleton on both sides of the station. So maybe something will happen with that one day. And of course, like what David said, due to money or different aspects, the line will probably have to get closed down again at some point in the near to distant future when they expand it again to probably, hopefully at that point, they finally go for the double tracking. But what's disappointing to see, though, is where the track is getting laid down right now. Sure, they widened the trench in a lot of spots, but the track is kind of located in the middle of the trench rather than a little off to the side. So if it was off to the sides, then there'd be room to put another track next to it. But since it's right in the middle,
They're
it
gonna have to
doesn't.
tear it up
Yeah,
anyway.
probably. Yeah, you have to tear it up, move it, and then. I mean, I have no problem with the people building it, because that's not, it's not their call, right? But it's a call of the city. Like, this is more a complaint to the city management or the politicians, because they're the ones that make some decisions on this, and they make very poor decisions. Let's just be frank about it. This should have been double tracked. If the Dow's Lake Tunnel didn't want to be doubled up or expanded or built a second tunnel, fine.
Yeah,
You can
the
time
tunnel
the
is not the
trains
choke
to get
point.
through there.
Yeah, and the tunnel is not the choke point. Like, for
No,
whoever says we need to build a second Dow Lake tunnel,
or a
that's
Rideau
like
River Bridge.
way far down the line. Like, when we're talking about double tracking the entire line, that part could remain and still not be the choke point. The reason why we're not going to lower frequencies, like, well, increase frequency, I should say, like more better than 12 minutes between trains, is because we're not double tracking everything else. And, like, you can put as many passing tracks as you want. A passing track is always going to be slower. It's simple, but it takes less metal, so it's easier to build and it's cheaper. So, yeah,
Oh, it's just disappointing.
yeah.
But I mean, nonetheless, we're excited to see it opening. I'm excited to go and try it at the airport. I mean, there's a lot of
Yes.
elevated sections that are going to be on this line now.
Mhm.
Going over the Via Rail crossing,
Yeah.
and going towards the airport. So past Upland Station to the airport, you're going to be able to see the tarmac. You're going to be able to see the trains as you arrive, or the airplanes, the aircraft. That's going to be really cool to see, as well as when we go down south to Limebank, which is going to be an elevated station. So if you think of
In the
Herdman
middle of
Station,
nowhere, but
yeah, but hopefully one day there's going to be some more stuff
yeah,
around there.
yeah.
But yeah, Limebank is going to be a station like Bayview or Herdman, where it's elevated, but it's going to be the terminus. So it's going to kind of raise up from the ground, pass over Limebank Road, I
Linebank.
believe,
Yeah, yeah, I
and
think so.
then just stop on the opposite side there, but elevated. It's going to be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah,
But we've talked enough about the South. People are probably like, "Hey, enough with the South. Let's talk about something more exciting." So we'll just take a look at the chat here for a couple
yeah.
minutes. Um,
I saw a question I
so
wanted to address.
okay, well,
You
what, the one
probably can
about the
figure out
Y
which.
north of Bayview, or the one
Uh,
from,
no, I was thinking the one from Sima down in the chat, but for the build a Y north of Bayview that connects the rail corridor to a new downtown tunnel. I mean, if money was growing on trees, I would say sure. Like, let's build a second tunnel. Why not? But it's. I mean, we already have difficulty convincing the city that it's worth building one tunnel in the first place,
Mhm.
and actually doing it right. So I don't think it's the. But I mean, if money was no object, I think a second tunnel would make sense, and I would want that tunnel to go towards Vanier and Sandy Hill, because it's not normal that in a city where the people with the I should say, like, the part of the city with the highest transit usage per capita still doesn't have, like, a proper dedicated, at least bus rapid line transit or something. Like, it doesn't need to be underground metro, or for all I care. Like, it could just be streetcar or tramway or something like that. But at least build something, please. There's so many projects going up over there. Anyway, I'm getting carried away.
Mhm. But no, it's true. I mean, that's a very dense
Mm,
community, and
yeah.
not to diminish any challenges around there, but a lot of people around there can be very economically challenged um, as
Yeah.
well. So I mean, having proper transit to allow people to make use of opportunities elsewhere in the city to make their living is
Mm,
important. People don't
yeah.
need to rely on car, and they certainly shouldn't have to rely on a bus that goes by every 30 minutes. There should be something that gets them across or connects with other locations a lot more quickly. So hopefully that's something that we do see evolve over time. I know a lot of people talk about, oh, the Bank Street O-Train tunnel and this and that. Sure, there's an interest in that, but I think let's not forget about Vanier here. Nobody
Yeah.
ever talks about Vanier, and Vanier is important to the city, and
Or people talk, yeah.
it's a big area. Like if you drive from Montreal Road and the 174, so where the
Yep.
Montreal Road station is, all the way to Rideau. I
There's
mean,
nothing in between. Well,
well,
I mean,
there's nothing.
there's a there's no transit in between, I should
No,
say. There's
but like if you're driving from one to the other, right? It's about a 5 minute drive. No, it's not a 5 minute drive. You're going through how many intersections, how many red lights? Like
mm,
there's a traffic light every block you go, and just to go from Montreal to Rideau, you're probably looking at about realistically 15 minutes of driving. It can be significantly
easily,
worse
like,
if you're
yeah.
hitting red lights or if there's traffic.
Mm,
Um, and even that, even having a line just going down Montreal Road and Rideau Street still wouldn't even cover everything because it's such a big area. But at least have some major line coming through there that
yeah.
buses can feed to, or people can walk to, or bike to, or something. I really want
Mm.
to see that area develop in that way, like a tramway, a streetcar,
Even
elevated
a
underground,
even
something.
a rapid bus,
Yeah,
like a
rapid
proper
bus.
rapid bus line. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be the old transit way, the way they built it in the
Mm.
80s. And it could be something like on the P9 in Montreal, that they like the SRB, I guess, would be the name for that. Or like even in New York with the SBS. So the I never remember the abbreviation, but the anyway, there are frequent routes. Like, it's not difficult. It doesn't have to be billions of dollars of capital expenditure. It just needs to be actually like investing in building something that actually is moving for, like, moving people and getting them where they need in the first place.
Like I
Yeah.
can respect that there's certain areas in that corridor where space is a challenge,
Yeah.
without tearing down buildings. I mean, clearly you don't want to build something and then start uprooting people and tearing things down. I mean, we're already seeing debate about that on Woodruff Avenue south of Algonquin, um, which we can talk about after when we talk about
Yeah.
West
Geez.
there. But hopefully Vanier gets its due because we don't
Yeah.
hear very much about it. I know Matthew Fleury was really passionate as the councillor in Vanier to see advancements there. Hopefully the new councillors and the city
Stephanie Pell.
recognize that,
Yeah.
and hopefully there's some sort of plan that's not in the far distant future to sort of address the needs of the people in this region, in this neighborhood, in this community.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
we'll move on to the east, which itself is really advancing quite quickly, and we're hoping that we're going to see some test trains
Just before, sorry,
waiting. Oh,
there's a
okay.
question that we need to answer. Does Montreal Road have as many potholes as roads in Montreal?
Okay, can I answer that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll say this. No. No, but I mean, look, if we can be silly about this, look, does Montreal Road have as many potholes as roads in Montreal? I would say Montreal Road has less potholes than Carling Avenue in Ottawa.
Yes, it's bad. Bronson too is awful. Bronson, Carling, Western Club, Woodruff too is, yeah.
Between Bronson, if you go down Bronson between the Queensway and just around Somerset, let's say,
Yeah,
there's some telephone poles that are kind of like, like the wood telephone poles. They're right into the asphalt. Like they're
yeah,
not even on the sidewalk. They're in the
because the
streets.
sidewalk's already really slim in the
I
first place. It's
know.
not because the sidewalk's big. It's not accessible.
But yeah, that road's pretty
Yeah.
bumpy. But I mean, I think Carling Avenue takes the cake. I mean, I don't read too much faith into CAA Ontario's analysis that Carling Avenue is generally regarded as the worst road condition of road in Ontario. But I would say it's one of the worst in the city. But there's certainly worse than that.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to pick my own choice there, Jeanne d'Arc between Innes Road and the 174 is just terrible.
You're fine.
It's,
I don't find it too bad.
Jeanne d'Arc?
Yeah.
No, it's awful, especially when you drive
Well,
north.
okay, look. We okay. Well, so on Jeanne d'Arc, between Orleans Boulevard, so near the Orleans Garden,
Yeah.
and the 174, so near.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but up of that.
Well, it's because it does a lot of this, right?
No, it's you need a off-roader to go there.
Like if they were to pave it really nice, they could have a Formula One race there, and you'd probably get a lot of fans. They'd say, "Wow, there's a lot of turns in this thing." But anyway,
it's called RailChat, not road conditions.
Not Jeanne d'Arc Boulevard. So what do you think about the extreme increase in rail construction prices? Both Ion Stage 2 and O-Train Stage 3 are above $4 billion. I mean, I don't quite understand how, let's say the Woodruff, so the, let's say the southwest extension from Algonquin down to Barrhaven, is that expensive? I don't quite see that. I mean, I'm not contesting that they're saying it's a lot, but I don't quite understand where that cost comes from. Like if we look at Stage 1 O-Train, which had a 2.5 kilometer downtown tunnel underground in probably the densest part of the downtown core, I don't understand where they come up with $3 million. Okay, so south of Algonquin, there's going to be an elevated section. Where exactly that's going to go is still seemingly up for debate at this point. Whether it's going to go in the median, if it's going to go on the side, if it's going to float somewhere in the air, we don't know. But once you get past that, it's just green space. So you're going through the green belt. And then there's going to be a grade separation where Via Rail is at Fallowfield, where that horrible accident happened, I think almost 10 years ago with the double-decker bus that collided with the Via Rail train. I mean, one good thing that's going to come with Stage 3 is that that's going to be grade separated. Something like that will completely be removed, which should have happened long ago.
But I think it should be untied from Stage 3. I think that should be put as, if I were
priority.
to say, it should be a road and transit priority, because first of all, it's dangerous, but at the same time, it's one of the easiest crossing to get rid of, because there's the space to build it. The plan's already made for what it needs to be, and you don't even need to build the preliminary work for the Stage 3 crossing at that point, because the Stage 3 crossing itself is completely unrelated to the road overpass. So at least, obviously, they want to disturb the bus routes too much. They don't want to disturb the road too much, and so on. But at the same time, like, it's
shocking that it's not grade separated.
Yes.
Even if you don't look at the bus crossing there, you have Woodruff Avenue, which is 4 or 6 lanes.
Yeah, pretty
right
much
next to it. I mean, of course, the bus situation is that you're kind of coming around a curve, and then the track is right there, so it doesn't give you much lead time if there's bush and things like that around there too. If you're not paying attention, as compared to Woodruff, which you're kind of just going straight through. But hopefully that gets changed. But okay, so look, we talk about that, whether that's bundled with Stage 3 or not, whatever. That might be a project that's done completely separately, and I know that they're working on the at grade crossings in Barrhaven. So let's just think of that as being something totally separate. So the elevated section from Algonquin going down to there, and then beyond that, there's a transitway road network that already exists that the train would follow for the most part, all the way down to Jockvale and all that. Where do you get the $3 billion from that, or $4 billion, or if all of Stage 3 going to Canada 2 was $3 or $4 billion? Okay, I can kind of get that, but just that one, I'm perplexed.
But it's kind of the same problem. I mean, we see with Quebec City, because Quebec City right now, we obviously they don't have announced or shown any new estimates for anything beyond the rolling stock. The rolling stock basically comes out to a cost um, about 40% more expensive than they were initially expecting. That's after negotiation with Alstom. That's after like reviewing their needs and like having a detailed plan of what they need. And obviously, when we see the infrastructure package, we do expect to see increased costs, but how much? And how much of the and I think it's a problem we see throughout the country so far with all the projects that have, if not shovels in the ground, but are getting ready to be shovels in the ground, because there's a worrying trend that the cost has increased, but the funding model doesn't really follow how to approach those increasing costs. And I think in the case of for Barvin, I think most of the cost comes from basically having to, if they go ahead and choose to put the elevated guideway in the middle of Woodruff, which is, I believe, the worst of the options possible in that spot, they need to basically redo the entire street, no matter what. That's gonna, because the project is dependent on the street being rearranged. That means moving utilities, having a plan in place to have detours during the work. Then they need to move utilities, build the pillars, build the guideway on top of it, and then they need to integrate it in the landscape. And I use the word integrated really in as much of a diminutive word as I can, because the renders they showed us of what it could look like are depressing and oh my god, I'm losing my English there, but it's disgusting. That's a word I'm gonna go with. It's disgusting, because the whole idea of having, well, you're gonna need sound barriers anyway for the cars, and then you're gonna have pillars in the middle that we need to put buffers on either ends of the pillars in case a car veers off into the pillars. So that means that you have sidewalks that are going to be ridiculous on the side of a noise barrier, and that's going to be splendid. And I'm really sarcastic, just in case someone quotes that. So,
well, thankfully, David,
I need
the plans aren't set in stone yet,
and
we'll probably still be debating them for the next 2 years before
or 20 years,
or maybe.
given how we do things in Ottawa, it's probably going to be a debate for another 10 years, and then they're going to say it's too expensive, and we're just not going to do anything. Yes, thank you, David. Yes, P. Yeah, let's go.
I mean, I think what's going on here, it's really a political thing, right?
Yeah.
That there is a lot of different positions politically right now. The O-Train sucks. We should be putting back a bus. It's too much money. Nobody's using transit. Everybody's working from home. The public works, or the public sector, or the public servants are only working 2 days a week. Now they're on strike. Maybe they won't even go back, and they'll get what they want, is to work at home. You can't operate a city like that that's at 1 billion or 1 million population that's growing.
Yes.
You can't just say, oh, the status quo is fine. The way it was with the buses at the end was not sustainable. Sure, right now the ridership is probably 70 some percent of what it was prior to the pandemic, but you can't say that the way it was before is better.
No,
the only thing that was better about the old system is if a bus broke down, the next one could drive around it. That's it. Okay? But beyond that, the train moves more people. It's smoother. You're not getting jostled around with the bus that has, the grab bars that are rattling and banging away the whole time. The fare box that looks like it's going to fly off at any moment.
Yeah. Whoever says they prefer the old train, the old transitway buses, they definitely either are deaf or they don't feel anything in their body. So, like,
well, unless you were riding the legendary, which will always have a place in my heart, the Orion Icarus.
I ate that bus.
Oh,
I
come
don't
on.
get
Okay.
it.
Thanks for joining us. David's gonna no,
I just
honestly,
don't get it.
I really love that bus. That like the
Yeah.
sound that bus made. If we're talking about the Detroit diesel one, not the Cummins one
Yeah.
there, but the Detroit diesel engine one, that had a really cool sound. It had a really neat feel. You know, the engine was right at the front. The exhaust would come in, you'd smell it. Smelled like burning rubber and oil. Uh, but you know, it was unique. It had like this really cool feel to it. You know, like you'd see that, say,
Nostalgia
oh, the
does weird
95.
things.
Like people wouldn't even call it like an articulated bus. They just say, oh, it's a 95 bus. It's a 95 bus. Well, it's on the Route 2, but they still call it a 95, right? Like everybody knew that bus. That was the backbone of the system. But beyond that, the train is a lot better, right?
Yes.
You go through downtown, you're underground. It's a lot more comfortable. The stations, in a sense, are better located than being on Albert and Slater. And it was always a challenge. You know, if you were waiting for your bus to go home at the end of the day, it would stop on a platform area that was about a third the length of a city block. But I mean, these were long blocks. It wasn't
Yeah.
just the short blocks like north and south. The east-west blocks are long. And you might have about 5 or 6 buses stopped at once, and it's like, where's the 27 or where's the 35? Oh my god, it's over there. And then you're running and then it's already taking off, or it stopped here, it got a few people, and then they all advanced.
And try to move
Nuts.
between people that are bunching up,
Yeah.
obviously, because they're trying to see if their bus is somewhere down the long line of buses that are going, maybe if they're lucky, a block an hour. So yeah, I don't get it.
Oh, you shared the link. If you want to be depressed about Woodruff,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna look at that because I don't feel like
you don't feel like being
I
depressed.
want to go to bed tonight like positive, because it's going to be raining a lot
No,
this
of
week,
course.
so
Yeah.
that's already depressing enough. But I digress. I don't even know what I was talking about there, but yeah, just a question about
The
the
old
South.
buses.
Yeah, no, I mean, you need a system like this to advance the city. It's a growing city. There's a lot of population. There's a lot of people that move, and we can't say, oh well, let's just wait until the ridership gets back there. It's going to get to that point one
By
way
the
or
time you
another,
start
whether
building.
more people go back to work or not. There's going to be more people in the city. They're building houses left and right, like it's Dollarama, selling all their stock. Like it's there's so much building going on. Like you look all over the city, in Barhaven, in Canada, in Orleans, and there's houses going up every year. You go there and you could probably drive another 1-2 kilometers in, and there's like a phenomenal amount of housing going up. How are these people supposed to get around? Drive?
Of
Take a
course.
bus?
It's the American way. They have to drive.
Oh, come on.
They have to. It's not a choice. They have to.
I know.
Yeah, anyway.
But
Yeah.
I guess my point is, one way or another, the ridership is going to hit what it was before. So let's not
Yes.
be naive and say that it's not. Let's not be let's be pessimistic here and say, let's wait and see. Yeah, wait and see. It's going to be too late then, because then it's
There you
going to
go.
be at capacity. And then you're going to say, oh, well,
Yep.
why don't we have this system out? Now we're going to build it, and it's going to be 7 years before it opens. You need to start building it now so that it's there when you need the capacity, right? Not let's wait until we hit it and then build it. So what's troubling now is that we see the current city leadership sort of debating, do we really need stage 3 or not?
Based on numbers that they A, are not even reliable in the first place, and B, are not even willing to consider their full extent, because, well, it's going to be a lot of money. But okay, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, it's a lot of money now. It's a lot more money in 20 years.
Well, of course.
Like, inflation works in mysterious ways. Like, people don't understand how it works. To them, well, I mean, it's not really a point I'm not really trying to make a point that people don't understand inflation, but the fact is things get more expensive as time goes on. So like right now, it's already problematic to build it, because there's the whole question of the right of way. There's the whole question of like, well, building elevated and building new stations and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's going to get even worse when there's A, new buildings that pop along the alignment where you need it, and B, don't take proactive action to protect the right of way and invest in actually building it. But I'm not a city planner, so
Yeah. Well, I guess my point really comes from, I think it's the Transit Commission chair.
yeah, I think so.
Well, I know the name. I'm not gonna put the name out there, but I mean you can figure that out. I think it was last meeting. Was it last week or the week before? Well, it was in the last. It was in the last 2 weeks, let's say.
Yeah.
And they said that, and brace yourself. Maybe we should only be building BRT. It's cheaper to build. It's quicker to build. Well, that's all the reason we need. Then
It's cheap.
yeah, it's cheap and it's quick. Well, and
When
then
was the last time? What?
and then 20 years later, they're going to be saying, "Oh, well, we're going to build it as a rail system." Well, you should have just done it from the start. Look at what we're seeing in Gatineau right now. They built that epibus. That probably should have been built as a tramway from the start, right? But they didn't have the money. Okay, I can understand that, right? Something is better than nothing, but doing something twice still costs more money than having done it once from the start.
Exactly.
You don't put a big 200-pound TV in your wall with drywall plugs from IKEA, knowing that you should have got, like the Cobra metal self-stealing bolts there that go in that, when you put it in and it really catches.
That's an oddly specific example.
I didn't do it. I'm not that naive. I put it right into the beam. Even if it's not centered with the wall, I'll put it in the beam. I'm not going to use the plugs.
Yeah. No, it just seemed really specific for some reason of an example.
I'm just trying to have fun today. We have to have some fun with this stuff.
No, right? Of course. Yeah. How about we move further west?
Yeah. So moving further west, I'll pass it to David. I'm just going to collect my thoughts here.
You have no idea where I'm
getting
going.
A little passionate about, obviously we're Rail Fans Canada here, and Canada's public transit rail enthusiasts. So obviously we want to see and again advocate for the continuation of what's already started, and to see that to its final concept and design, right? So going all the way to Canada, going down to Barhaven, or at least in proximity of those areas, rather than just saying, well, Orleans gets the train, then Canada is going to have to make do with Moody for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So hopefully that position changes, or that's not really a universal position on the council. Hopefully things continue to move as they were before.
Yeah. So further west, I know I said I know I want to talk about Quebec. I know I do, but I'm gonna go to Toronto for a minute or two because I think it's worth talking about what's happening over there, especially with Crosstown. Have you read the beautiful article by the Toronto Star about what's going on with Crosstown?
Oh, I saw that this morning.
Yeah.
I'm not a subscriber on the Toronto Star, so I can only read so much.
Yeah, okay, to be fair, I don't subscribe to the Toronto Star. Like, full disclosure, I just realized the kind of statement I'm making there. But Apple News Plus has Toronto Star articles, so that's where I read it. But basically, about the whole question of transparency and actually trying to get the project on the tracks. So Metrolinx keeps saying that it's all because of the private partner. The private partner doesn't say anything. Metrolinx doesn't say anything else because the premier doesn't want Metrolinx to say anything else. So it's really, really, really I know last year in the project update of 2022, I said that basically we expect Crosstown to open in 2023. At this point, I don't even believe that. Given how things are going with that project, I honestly, if I were a betting man, I would put my money on Finch West opening first, between Crosstown and probably Ontario was going to open first if things keep going that way in Toronto. So I don't know if Shane, you have any opinions or wisdom you want to share on the topic on your side.
Well, I mean, I kind of agree with your point there. It seems like Finch West is actually progressing a lot better than. I mean, Crosstown. It's hard to say exactly what's going on because it's just been such a prolonged period under construction. It's like where does it stand right now? I mean, there's not even a clear picture of where it stands. Like you see trains operating in videos going back and forth on what does look nice, having grass on the alignment between the tracks. That's nice. But you look at that and then you read an article, oh, it's maybe another year or two or God knows when it's going to open. Well, the train's running and I see grass. Like I don't understand. Like it doesn't make sense. Like what's going on? I don't get it. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
And I think that's the issue, right? That people don't understand because there's a bit of lack of transparency as to what's actually going on down there. But I mean, from the pictures and stuff that are put out, it looks nice. It looks really interesting. It looks like something I want to ride and make use of. But if you look at what pictures are being put out, it's like it looks fairly close to being done to me, but apparently it couldn't be farther from the truth. So I don't know.
Apparently, 90.5% of the engineering/construction work is done, and 78% of the testing is done.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, because that's based on documents that the Toronto Star was able to get through Freedom of Information Access Request, or FOIA. Yeah, I think so. It's FOIA, the abbreviation in French and English. Anyway, and obviously Metrolinx is not saying anything because the Premier's office doesn't want them to say anything. So, and that's on the record too, that they are not saying anything. So, and especially even if you compare within Metrolinx to what's happening with Finch West. Finch West, every few months, they have community updates with actual slides of the progress, like what's been done, what's left to be done. But it's weird that there's no actual transparency and desire to be transparent about things there, because at this point, the project's Crosstown has cost up to, I think that close to $13 billion at this point. The whole line has been under construction for 10 years. 10 plus years. Like the people along Eglinton are not having a good decade there. That's how I'm going to put it. Young Station being the hold up, that's what I heard too, to reply to Nouvelle Écosse in the chat. The issue is that we can assume it's Young Station that problem, but no one's telling us. We have no idea what's the timeline. We have no idea what's the actions are being taken to solve the issue. If I can, just jump even further west again, if we go in Edmonton with the Valley Line, well, at least when they realized that they're not opening this last year, they said why. We know it's the pillars, but then once they continued investigating, figured out there were more pillars than expected, then they came up with an update and at least provided some sort of transparency on what is the issue and what actions are being taken to solve those issues. But in the case of Crosstown, your guess is as good as mine. There's people saying it's mold, it's already. So Young Station is going to be underground. For those that might not be familiar with it, it's going to be, if I recall, it's a cavern under the subway station there at Young in Eglinton. So if I recall, and I'm not, I wouldn't bet money on that, but basically, apparently, the state of the infrastructure that the Crosstown project team was supposed to build in is not to the standards or level that it should have been in the first place. So that's part of the delays. But again, it's all speculation because no one knows. Well, people that know cannot say. That's more what you should say. And even further west, there's the SkyTrain Broadway subway extension that's been progressing great, and we've been getting pictures and we're getting updates. We know what's happening there, but no, Metrolinx does think differently. It's the Metrolinx way, I guess.
So if we move to Quebec now, because we did start. Well, I'm talking about the province first.
Yeah,
so
I figured.
we'll just come back to to our local region here. So, we talked about the O-Train, and again, hopefully things progress nicely there. East is looking good. West is looking really good. South, hopefully things come together. We see a lot of progress every summer. Yeah. So there's every reason to believe that it'll open this year, but we'll see what happens.
It's not going to open this year. They're going to want to, especially given now the testing regimen for the stage 1 has been seen as problematic by the population. it'd be insane for them to decide to open this year and then have basically the backlash of, well, you should have done one more year of testing, or at least a winter. So,
well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to talk about is Gatineau, and Gatineau wants to build a tramway between the Plateau and Elmer to, to go by Thérèse la Chaudière and Place du Portage, to then cross the Portage Bridge, and then either insert itself on the surface of Wellington Street or underground under Sparks Street. I'd like to see Sparks. Just putting that out there. Because then you have the opportunity of integrating with the O-Train. The loop?
Well,
we're still talking about the loop.
I still talk about the loop. I still believe it's a great
I kind of
idea.
gave up on that. I just want to see the tramway just get built at
No,
this point.
of course, at this point, whatever we can get. But
yeah. But yeah, I'd like to see the underground section on Spark Street, because then you could have theoretically connection underground directly into Parliament and Lion Station. I think that would be really beneficial to allow really nice, smooth transfers in between. And it also creates more entry points to those two O-Train stations from what there is right now, which isn't, I'd say, problematic. But I mean, you can always have more, and it makes it even more interesting to get down there. Hopefully, we can see some advancement on this soon, or some commitment. It's dragging to the point that I'm really concerned that that's just going to flat out get canceled or just never happen. I mean, at this point, it feels like it's never going to happen. I really want that not to be the case, but I don't understand what's happening in the federal budget. It seemed like there was indication that they're going to help, correct me if I'm wrong, spend more money to do more studies. Is that what I read, right?
I think so, yeah. But there's no shovel in the ground kind of thing there. It's just, let's study it further. And just a reminder that the Gatineau Tram project came to light about the same time as the Quebec Tramway project, at least in the modern form. We're not talking about the project that's been just proposed 2 months back. It's been like 5 years. Jeez, time flies, eh?
Yeah. So hopefully we can see some movement and traction on that. I interviewed Mobio, which is the Centre de Gestion des Déplacements de l'Outaouais, or de Gatineau. And we talked about the project, the current status. So if you want, you can find that video on the YouTube channel. It's one of the, I think it's
more recent
fourth or fifth most recent video. So you can learn more about that. And there's some other videos with Maud Marquis Bissonnette and another counselor, Miriam Nadeau, who was the chair of the STO from the previous council. So there's a lot of information there about the project and the benefits. So hopefully that can move forward. But I know David is jumping in his seat there. He wants to talk about one thing in particular, which is la troisième lien.
Well, actually, I had something else in mind too. But...
Oh, you want to talk about the Quebec Tramway?
Well, yeah. I mean, we cannot go to Quebec without talking about the tramway. No, I know. But definitely want to talk about the third link too, because I've been reading all those studies over the week. It's been an exciting week for someone that actually cares about transit in Quebec, Quebec City. Anyway, tramway. We now know that the supplier is Alstom for good, so that's one thing, and we know it's going to be a Cité de Spirit. Yeah. So there's two things I want to nuance before everyone starts panicking and saying that, oh no, it's the Spirit again.
Well, the first thing is that the renders that we previously saw aren't going to come to pass. That's what we're.
Yeah, I don't believe any of the renders I've been looking at and being like, I wish it happens and like it looks really European and like it's going to integrate properly.
But those renders don't match up with the Cité de Spirit.
Well, of course not. But because they're so I'll quote not literally what they were saying, but the study, the office that studies the tramway project in Quebec came up with those renders as without knowing obviously that would be Alstom or Siemens or any other suppliers. So that was more of a general inspiration of what they're looking at.
An artistic possibility.
Yes, that's the way we should see it. And it's a bit the same, obviously, for the stations themselves. A lot of it is going to be up to the infrastructure partner. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning is the cost per unit. If we're just talking about the cost of acquisition of the rolling stock, Quebec City is spending about ballpark twice as much per unit as what Metrolinx paid in 2017. Obviously, there's been a lot of inflation in between. The supply chain has been completely messed up. So there's probably a large part of that cost that comes into um, the the realities of the market that brings up the cost of rolling stock, period. However, there's probably also a cost that comes with customization, and we don't exactly know how much customization is going to be made for Quebec City. If I have a wish list, it would be basically to tear down whatever is in the. Basically, you take, if it was just my opinion, and we're stuck with Alstom rolling stock, and I use the word stuck, not probably in the best way there. I would hope they would use whatever design they came up with, the X05 Citadis, so the fifth generation Citadis that is a bit more open and more of a streetcar feeling than what we have right now, because it does seem like, obviously we haven't seen renders of what Alstom actually proposed to the city. We should have a better idea later this spring. Alstom's supposed to do a presentation with the city and the media, so we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. I will, for sure. But I'm a bit worried that we're basically going to get Ottawa / Metrolinx to the Spirit with gray outside. I don't like, my expectations are really low because we haven't seen any true customization on the City of the Spirit yet. And even if we go by the brochures of Alstom from like 2012, 2013 that show what the City of the Spirit is all about, there's nothing really extravagant or different from what we've seen so far. So that's why I would really like to see maybe them bring whatever they have from the fifth generation Citadis into a Citadis Spirit design to at least make it feel more like a streetcar than I guess a light rail / medium rail vehicle. But we'll see. I keep an eye out for that. And anything else you want to add on that topic, or I'm just
I mean, I don't think the City of the Spirit is a bad
no,
vehicle.
it's
I
not.
think just in Ottawa, it's really being pushed there.
Yes.
With the speeds, with the curves.
Yeah,
But I
that's
mean, at the
I
same
don't.
time, I mean, it's supposed to be used like a streetcar as well, right? So it should be able to handle semi-decent turns without too much issue. But I mean, the way it's operated here, it's full acceleration, slow down, take a
Yeah,
turn, lay on the power again, slow down, speed up, power on again. It's
it's
really
harsh.
being
Yeah,
pushed. It's pretty impressive that they have a train that's doing all this. Like, it's kind of like driving a Formula One circuit where it ramps up and slows down in kind of a similar way.
yeah,
So when we see it on the Finch West, or we see it in Quebec, it'll be operating more, at grade on street.
yeah.
It probably will fare,
Much
or it
better.
has every reason to believe it'll fare a lot better because it'll be operating in more conventional.
Low. That's where you would use a low floor vehicle normally. It would
Mhm.
be more with the bogies that are suited for a streetcar kind of thing. But obviously, Ottawa decided to push the limits.
Yeah. But I mean, the other thing too is the weather that they get up there is, I mean, like we talk about the Ottawa weather, and then there's the Montreal weather, which is fairly similar. And
Hmm.
then Quebec City, I mean, it's something else up there as well. But
It's
again, at,
this
at,
one.
at at the reduced speeds,
Yeah,
who's to say it won't have any issue? What they do have going for them going in that city is that by then I think it'll be a pretty proven model because it will have had the experience of Ottawa, it'll have the experience of Finch
yeah,
West, and maybe any other players in North America where the LRV is being uh, marketed.
yeah. Because right now those are the, like, at least the fourth. Well, unless I'm forgetting someone. Ottawa, Finch West, um, Hamilton or Ontario, one of the two, and then it's Quebec. So that'll be the fourth order for Cité de Spirit. One thing that is uncertain is obviously there's a lot of orders for the United States, also for Cité de Trainsets. We don't know if they're going to be Cité de Spirit derivatives or if they're going to be unrelated to Cité de Spirit in the sense of the platform itself. So there's Quebec might not get basically what I would call a first generation Cité de Spirit in the grand scheme of things. And it's very possible that like there might not be any issues at all. I think for me the biggest surprise came from the fact that we know there's a lot of Citadis trains that are in France and Europe that have a lot more customization than what we've seen so far with the Citadis and in North America, and it's a bit worrisome that we might not have a train as customized for Quebec than maybe what was somewhat suggested, I would say, over the last few years. But
what
anyway,
they have going for it as well is that they have Ottawa using the same train in
yeah,
a relatively similar climate. So the advancements, upgrades, or maybe not upgrades, but the rectifications and the improvements and the running that we have here will play into and influence the design of the train over there. So they'll
yeah,
incorporate the um, the work that they do here will get incorporated over there to
yes.
create a better vehicle from the start.
Mm. Now, one last topic in Quebec, the third link. We'll go really briefly. Good riddance. I mean, all fairness, I think it should still happen as like underground metro kind of thing that connects between downtown Quebec and what they call the Desjardins district in Lévis. I still think it should happen under that form. But what I have a feeling is, given how politics are in the Quebec, is that it's basically the first step in saying we are killing this project because they still haven't said any cost estimate for that new version of the project. That's one thing that's worth mentioning. And by my really rough math and definitely not an engineer experience, I'd be surprised if the cost comes back as less than $5 billion, because the cost for basically you're looking at the very least at 10-meter diameter tunnel with the TBM that you need to go 100 meters under the St. Lawrence River to be able to build because of how messed up the ground is over there. Like the ground studies are not favorable to any project of the sort. It's doable. It's technically doable. That's one thing that's worth mentioning. It's not a project that's insane as the other tunnel, but yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what comes up with that. I don't expect much. I expect it, like I said, just expect it to be a slow way to kill the project. And like now that they have a strong second mandate, they can move to other things and just act like it never happened in the first place, because it does feel like that. Sima in the chat, I mentions they really need to build the Charlebourg tram instead of wasting time on the third link. I mostly agree with that. I think, and it's been a discussion that I've had with a few people in the Discord previously, is that to me, the most rational next step for the project is a branch. Well, it would be two branches that basically you'd have a central core from Saint-Roch to around Laurier or even a bit further out, and then branch off. So you'd have split frequencies on the Beauport and Charlebourg branch, but this way you could potentially also have a link to the airport and connect an Ancienne Lorette. So that would be adding onto the network there. So there's definitely a lot of options, I think, for Quebec to where to put a second phase of the tram project. And I believe Bruno Marchand is actually really confident in. He always brings up the whole idea of the next step forward, and I think it's a good thing to see that there's appetite, at the very least politically, from the mayor's office in Quebec City. And Quebec politics are different than Ontario politics. So I'm somewhat hopeful there, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess, for that.
So when
But
you're talking about the airport, you're talking about going to Jean Lesage?
yeah, pretty
Oh,
much.
okay.
So right now you have a bus route. It's so the reason why it's always been difficult for the airport is because La Siennorette is not part of Quebec City. It's two separate cities. So um, a streetcar could potentially serve a bit more of Saint Augustin and then loop back towards the airport, or it could be a separate branch that follows along and connects through Le Bourgneuf, which is also one of the fastest developing part of Quebec City in terms of density and population. So there's many ways they can get to the airport. It's just how exactly and when and how much of it. Like to me, it's the logical termination of a line of the tramway because there's nothing beyond the airport. And to add on to that, say HFR actually happens, that's where one of the stations will be. Because Sainte Foy, well, Gare de Sainte Foy will still be used a bit, but not as much. So if you have a direct rail-to-rail connection between the airport, whatever HFR takes shape of as, and basically the tram network for the city, that would be the most direct connection between the three modes compared to what we have right now with Gare du Palais, that is going to be at the very, like, is going to have still to rely on the bus routes to serve it. So I don't know. It's things that will be worth having a look at in the future, but obviously still too early to say. So, but yeah, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't put money on the third link being built. Like honestly, I don't believe it at this point. I think that's their slow way to kill it because now anyone that cares about cars is not going to care about it, and then they're going to come back with a price that's probably going to be as much as the original price they said in 2018 of $6.3 billion, and people are going to be like, well, that's way too expensive for 5,000 people an hour taking it. That's going to be the end.
I mean, I find I don't like when the politics gets involved into a lot of this stuff because I know
Yeah.
the political side is what dictates what gets done, what doesn't get done.
They control the purse.
Yeah, what gets proposed and then what gets ultimately shut down.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of room for advancement here. I understand the politics is you have some people with one position, other people with another position, and the position with the bigger following or support or seats.
It's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, I find that that can be detrimental to what we're seeing in Quebec City. That can be detrimental to what we're seeing in Montreal because obviously the Rem de l'Est got canceled, but now they're talking about oh, here's another way we could do it, but now CDPQ Infra is not involved in it, so it could be somebody else. Well, who's going to come and finance it in the same way that they would have?
Yeah.
Like their situation is very unique in that they propose an infrastructure project that benefits the community, but also gives them and their shareholders, so like the pensioners and Quebec residents,
All of Quebec, basically.
a return, right?
Mm.
Like they want to make
Yeah.
money out of this, but at the same time do an advancement in infrastructure. And they're not asking for much in return for that, right? So
in grand scheme, no.
no. So I mean, like it's actually a pretty decent deal. But to think that somebody else is going to come up and do something similar with such, it's almost like at work they say, oh, we're going to give you carte blanche. Who else is going to do something like that? Like when the whole REM thing first came up, I was like this doesn't make sense. Like who would be doing something like this?
Yeah.
And if it's true, you'd be nuts not to take it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to find somebody else that's going to be this generous with spending and this kind of support to pull something like this off. But time will tell what will happen. Clearly, the east end of the island needs to have increase in service. Definitely, the Blue Line extension is one step in the right direction. But more needs to be done out there because we do have the REM that's going to be going to Anse-à-l'Orme, going towards the airport, although stopping one stop short of getting to Dorval. But that's a topic for another day. And then it goes to Dermontagne, which previously was the EXO line. So I mean, that's sort of just like a redo of what was there before, but with significantly increased frequency and better comfort, and nicer stations than which was essentially just a platform and
A
lights.
slab of concrete with a bus shelter.
Yeah.
How familiar is it? Yeah.
Well, I think it was actually a little more scaled back than that. Even.
Yeah. It was a slab of concrete and maybe a bus shelter, but yeah.
But see, I mean, like with the REM, it's going to change the dynamic around there. I remember one time I was going to Montreal, and I was going to go early, and my plan was to park at I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't I think it was the first station on the island after Vaudreuil d'Orient.
Yeah,
but like on the Hudson line.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't matter. But in any case, I got to the station. The thing with the EXO schedules is that they're actually, it looks simple, but it's kind of confusing to follow what's going on, right? So anyway, long story short, I got there too late. I got to the platform, like, wow, this parking lot's fairly full. There's nobody on the train platform. I mean,
that was it.
Wait, when there's like 20,000 people, right? And then I look at the schedule and I'm like, oh, the last one was 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So okay, back in the car I go, and I drove a little farther, and well, I looped around another way and I actually parked at Dorval. I parked at the Sheraton and the Aloft, just near the airport, and I took as silly as it sounds, I took the shuttle bus from the airport, from the Sheraton to the airport, and then I took the 747 STM bus to well, I got off at Lionel Guru. I didn't go all the way to Bellerive Camp, but then on the way back, I took the EXO train and I got off at Dorval. My God, is anybody watching this stream? Have you ever gotten off at that EXO station and tried to get to the damn hotel?
It's a mess.
Like, frig, I thought I was gonna get hit by cars. Like, it's not clear how to get across. Like, you're just crossing maybe like 2 blocks. My God, there's the sidewalk's almost not. I think the sidewalk's pretty much non-existent, and there's cars flying around, and you're kind of crossing like practically almost a highway, but it isn't. But it's like an on and off ramp. Jesus, I honestly thought I was gonna get hit by a car. I'm like, fuck. How am I? Sorry, but I mean, how am I gonna get back to the other side? Like, badly thought out on my part, but I mean, Jesus Christ, Alain, have you done it? Maybe Alain's
good
done
luck is the comment from Alain, so I guess it's pretty much accurate to what I've read too. Yeah,
but yeah, like I it took a while to get across because I was like, this is not. No, he hasn't gone across, but it wasn't fun. Maybe it's been improved, but man, nice to hear you managed to survive. Yeah, had I not survived, there wouldn't have been a rail fence. So.
Yeah,
I want to live. I think I've seen Google Street view of that area now, and I think it's improved a little bit.
Yeah,
but I mean, if it's the same as it was before, there, like, I'm sure that maybe the way I crossed it wasn't probably the best way of crossing it. But I mean, I don't know how else you're supposed to cross there. But in any case, it was pretty bad. But I digress. This is all this to say I wanted to ride the train, and the frequency was pretty poor. So now with the new service, for example, if I want to go to Montreal and I want to drive and not take Via, because I want to ride the REM, I can go to Anse-Talord or even the CF Fairview, like Point Clair.
Yeah,
Fairview Point Clair. Get on the train there and then take it down along the nice elevated section. That's pretty much just the same thing as riding the SkyTrain in Vancouver. How cool is that going to be? I'm going to love that.
Yeah. And with great views of the airport too. Like for watching the landings, and that's going to be great for that too, actually.
What's the observation spot near the airport? It's called
Jean Lesseps or Jean de Lesseps.
Is that what it is?
Something like that. Yeah, there's a park right next to the runway. If you just honestly, like, it's really great. If you have, I really like it. There's, I would say the biggest problem with this spot is that it's really windy because there's no trees around. But anyway,
I would say finding a spot that doesn't look like you're parking in front of one of those industrial places.
Yeah, but you park on the street. It's fine. It works great.
Yeah, we have to go with our. I have to bring my son there one day because it's really a cool spot. Again, we're digressing from the rail, but I mean, we're also fans of other things too here. But if ever you want to watch planes and have a good time doing, bring a picnic or bring some cameras or whatever, beautiful spot to do it from. And it's sort of like a little small mound, a mound of, grass and gravel and all that. That's elevated, so you see above the airport perimeter fence, and you can see like the airport apron and the runways and the tarmac, the backside of the terminal. It's really cool. Unfortunately, the REM's not going to go near there, but the
it's
place
going to be
still
underground
exists.
too. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's going to go underneath around there. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
if you're Superman or Supergirl and you got X-ray vision, you'll be able to see it from underneath.
There you go.
So I'm not sure what else I want to live. Just with the car, it's awful. I mean, yeah, that area around there is not bad. If ever people want to stay around there, the Sheraton is not bad. I stayed there a few times, and the Aloft is actually kind of cool too.
Yeah.
The breakfast is better at the Aloft or at the Sheraton because the Aloft is a sort of like a counter thing.
Hotel reviews by Rail Fans Canada. We've seen everything.
We had a shaky start this morning, so. So does anybody have any questions for us? If you want us to talk about, our love for the O-Train, the Réseau Express Métropolitain, Quebec City's Tramway. If anybody wants to hear us talk about the Régie Le Bon.
What?
What's his
Régis
name?
Labaume?
Régis Le Bon?
Yeah. Régis. Oh boy, there's not much to say there. I mean, there's a lot to say, but not really related to this. So, yeah.
But yeah, if anybody has any questions there, I mean,
No,
obviously
I think,
we have a big year ahead of us. It's been a bit of a slow start because there hasn't really been much activity right now. But if the REM opens in the next 2 months or less, you're going to see some good stuff. We're going to start filling out the website, the REM site there, so the station pages, the train page for the Alstom Metropolis. Will we be in Montreal when the REM opens?
Yes.
I think that's absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, obviously we don't know we don't have better information than anyone else on when it opens. But let's just say that I have my email ready to send to my boss saying I'll be out of the office for that day. Deal with it.
You're gonna be sick or?
No, I'll be out of the office.
Can I buy you a beer? Sure, thank you. But yeah, the REM is going to be opening hopefully in the next 2 months. O-Train, hopefully we'll see some activity on that in the fall. But in the lead up to that, we're going to see some other stuff. Hopefully have some content. There'll probably be some opportunities to see different things on the O-Train all over. And there's going to be some other things coming as well. Hopefully, we have some other ideas in the works there. But it's just the timing right now because obviously, both of us work full-time jobs, and I have a family and a child, so it's been a little more challenging the past half year since September to advance things here. So it's been a little more slow but steady. But content's going to pick up there. So we have Nouvelle Écosse asking any updates on via HFR.
The most recent information that's publicly available is as of the video we made on the channel. I guess it'll be end of February with the launch of the RFQ. Since then, nothing. So wait and see.
So I think that pretty much wraps things up.
Yeah. It's a good spot to call it a night.
Yeah. And hopefully next time we'll be able to start on time. We actually launched. We went live at probably 4:02, but for some reason, well, I wouldn't have noticed. But David's like, yeah, it's not actually live on YouTube right now. So
we're live on Facebook, but not on YouTube.
Yeah. So hopefully, well, we'll keep an eye on that next time. That shouldn't happen there.
Yeah.
Usually once you have an issue happen once, you're like, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on this. But there's always an issue every time. I don't understand why this is always so difficult. But
There's always something. It's not a real
yeah.
chat if there's not something that goes wrong.
Okay, well, thanks, David. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Stay tuned for some.
Got some visit there, I guess.
Stay tuned for some great content coming soon. I think the pizza's about ready, so I guess we're gonna get going.
Yeah,
We're gonna
all
get
right.
going, or maybe the bouncy castle blew a leak or something. Yeah, we got a bouncy castle in the other room. That's pretty fun at night.
Oh, jeez. Must be fun to get someone to bed with that. Oh, jeez. Oh. Yeah.
You do what you got to do, right? So,
kids.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and stay tuned. Lots more content coming soon. We might have some really cool behind-the-scenes stuff in the next month or two. I can't say more right now because that's still in the works, but hopefully we see some cool action on that. And again, keep your eyes open for news on the REM and the O-Train.
Quebec when I feel like it.
Yeah. And Quebec when you feel like it. Yeah. But really, there's going to be some cool stuff happening this year. Two lines opening. It's going to be better than last year.
Maybe 3. Who knows? Maybe.
What? Crosstown?
Crosstown. Well, I'm really like 50-50 on that, but maybe 3, but 2, at least 2.
Well, stay tuned. We'll see.
Right.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching. And on behalf of myself, Shane Seguin, and my co-host, David Bellerive, see you soon.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you cut for a second there. Like it was.
I know. Oh, and I forgot the from last time. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Find a way to get the O-Train bell in there.
Yeah, exactly.
The right one to use, but for some reason it just doesn't let me. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully it won't be as big of a wait for the next RailChat. Maybe we'll try and do this every 2 months or sooner. But of course, we have some news about REM, or it opens in the next 2 months. Be sure there'll be lots of content and RailChat after that. Take care. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.